Let's now explore the intersection between technological advancements and the essence of our humanity. It's my great pleasure to welcome our next speaker, Professor Joel Pearson, who defies the mould of a typical academic. He started out at art school, something that would shape his unique approach to science. He's now one of Australia's preeminent neuroscientists, and wait for it, the world's foremost expert on intuition and the human imagination. His book, The Intuition Toolkit, has captivated audiences worldwide, offering unparalleled insights on a topic that lies at the heart of human decision-making. Technology and soul, celebrating the human spirit in the age of AI. And it's our next plenary. So please welcome Joel Pearson to the podium. Thank you.
So it's great to be here. Thank you for all being here. Thank you for inviting me. So yeah, I'm a university professor, and besides doing the neuroscience and studying the brain and brain scans and all that great stuff, my mission is really to take a lot of that knowledge out from behind university doors, out from behind science journals, hidden away, and bring it out, turn it into services and products and things that are interesting and exciting that can help people in practical ways and improve lives. So today we're talking about AI, and I'll try and just to get us all on the same page, say a couple of quick words about AI, generative AI. I presume most of us know what I'm talking about. We've probably, put up your hand if you've used ChatGPT in the last few weeks. Put up your hand if you don't know what I'm talking about. You know, what is this strange ChatGPT thing? One person, there we go. Thank you for being honest. So AI has been around for a long time. We don't have time to go through the history of it. I remember reading papers from the 70s, where they were saying there's going to be a breakthrough in the next couple of years and AI was going to outclass human performance back in the 70s. And then it was all a bit of a failure. More recently, with ChatGPT and the other large language models, we've seen this birth of generative AI. And it's really caught all our imaginations and brought all the things together. Now we're on the cusp of humanoid robots, which are going to be coming in the next year or two to nursing homes, to homes beyond the factories where they currently are. So I put together this little video, and it's a little test for you guys. So I'm going to play both of these, and your job is to say, or pick out which one you think is me and which one you think is made or created by AI.
Hey everyone. So what do you think? Have a good look at me. Is this the real me? Is this the real Joel? Or is this an AI generated version of Joel? What do you think? Hands up for the AI version. Okay, now hands up for the real thing. Interesting.
AI slightly winning there. Let's see, what about this one?
Just a quick video to see what you think. Is this really me, or is this created by AI?
So what are we thinking, left or right? Who thinks the first one was really me? The second one? Oh, second one has it. Second one's winning. Well, the truth is they're both created by AI, right? It's a trick. I tricked you all, right? So this is a sort of an avatar mask created from me from about 3 minutes of video modeled off me, right? If I trained it on more video, it'll get better and better. And you see, if you look carefully, it's not perfect. Some of the mouth and sound is off, and there's a couple of wobbly, weird things, but it's pretty good, right? And things are moving very quickly. I want to show you one more demonstration. In the last few weeks, some more text come to surface. It's a way of doing something like this, or deep faking real time on your phone or your computer. So if you're doing a Zoom call, you can change who you are in real time, right? It basically works with a live feed from your webcam on your computer. So here's a video of someone playing around with that, going through different celebrity faces, and it's doing this in real time on the fly. It's reacting to light in the room. If you shine a torch around it, it takes that into account. So what does this mean, right? It means that next time you're in a Zoom call, you can't be sure who you're talking to, right? It used to be seeing is believing, but it's not the case anymore. Not only if you're watching content online, but if you take a FaceTime call from someone, a loved one, it may not be them. It may be a deep fake running in real time, changing the voice and the face. So we're moving into a new era where we have to change the way we think about things. We have to change the way we think about seeing things and video and live interaction. There's all different ways of overcoming these kind of security concerns and scams and things like that. So it's a pretty bold statement, but I think it's true. I think AI over the next decade or so will change everything that uses electricity. Not immediately, but it's going to get there. And even if there's no more massive breakthroughs with AI development, what we have already, the way it's being applied to humanoid robots with all their sensors and all the data it's going to start collecting through these human-style robots, we're going to see it proliferate everywhere. And it's going to have huge impact and change all our lives in very interesting, good, and sometimes difficult ways. It's going to change education, jobs, companies, whole economies, and governments. And I'm not just talking about, I'm a university, I give lectures at university, I'm a professor there. I'm not talking about an AI doing my job of teaching or a tutor. I'm talking about what is the role of a university? What is the meaning of a school? What do we need schools and universities for if we all have our personal AI assistant, which has all of our information instantly available, added on a high level of cognition and intelligence on top of that? What do we need to go to school for? Do we still need to go to school? Maybe we do. Maybe we have to rethink a school, rethink a university. Do we still need degrees? What will jobs be like? Will we still have jobs? Will humans still be doing and making goods and services, doing the kind of things we're doing now? Companies will most probably be a form of AI, each company an AI itself. Economies will be millions of AIs communicating in ways we can't follow or track or understand around the globe. And of course, governments will also be AIs and partially governed or controlled by artificial intelligence. So things are going to change a lot, and we don't know exactly how that's going to roll out, when it's going to happen. These things are a little bit non-linear, they're a little bit exponential, but they're already starting to happen in interesting ways. Right? You've probably come into contact with some kind of talk about this extinction risk, that AI is going to become sentient and conscious, right? And just like the Terminator films, it's going to turn against us and try and wipe us off the globe. And it sounds scary, right? When we hear these things, we imagine bits from the Terminator film and the skulls and the guns, right? And our brains become very active and the limbic system is very active. And we become worried about these things. But it's not where we need to think about or worry about or put our time or effort right now. If this is even a possibility, it's a long way off, right? AI has already been doing damage to young people through different social media platforms. That's already been happening over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And it's been doing different things. So it's this sort of threat to extinction is not what we need to put our time into. It's not what we need to worry about. Right? We tend to worry about the wrong things. We worry about public speaking, about shark attacks, and not about the things that are most likely to kill us or harm us. But AI will shape humanity, and it will reshape us, the way we live our lives, and what we do in interesting and sometimes challenging ways. So now I've done this mini intro, I just want to get a read of the room. Let's do a bit of crowd work. Put up your hand if you think the whole AI thing's overblown, it's a bit of hype, it's just all hot air, it's going to just disappear in a couple of years, not an issue. Put up your hand. Ooh, no one. What about if you're more at the other end of the spectrum, the Terminator end? You're worried, you're staying up at night, you're worried about what's going to happen. AI is going to take over the world, we're going to lose control, it's going to be inviting sophisticated aliens down to our planet. Put up your hand if you're in that camp. No? 1, 2, a couple of people. All right, so I'm guessing everyone's somewhere in the middle. So let's say you've been thinking about it, you've been hearing about it, you're a little concerned about what's going to happen to jobs, how governments are going to react, you're worried about the legislation, you're worried about the ethics around this, and you have been thinking about it, you're a little bit worried, but you're not freaking out. Okay, so most people in the middle there. I'm somewhere in the middle, leaning towards the end there, but not for the Terminator reasons, for other reasons, which we'll get into. So don't get me wrong for today. I think AI is going to be amazing, right? It's going to deliver all kinds of beautiful things. It's going to cure diseases, solve problems we're struggling with, solve climate change in all kinds of interesting ways. But the point I want to get across, and this is, if you remember nothing else from today, try and hopefully remember this. Even if A is utopianly amazing, it's fantastic, right? It's still going to be massively disruptive. It's still going to disrupt our jobs, our education systems at all levels, governments, economies, going to change geopolitical power, and already is. So even if it doesn't go bad, even if it's really positive and really good and really productive, it's going to throw our world somewhat into chaos. And that's something I want to get across. It's not about if AI is going to go bad, if it's going to try and hurt us. It will fall into the wrong hands, obviously, to some degree. But even the best case scenario, we're going to need help managing our way through this next decade or so of change. And we know that positive things, right? People that win the lottery, often a large percentage of people who win the lottery end up regretting it. Way more people than you would think. Rapid change, even if it's positive, can be hugely disruptive and people will regret it. And we need help with managing our way through this kind of change, right? It can be hard to manage. If you're still having a little bit of doubt, I'm going to make one more point around exponential functions. So if I grab a piece of paper like this and I fold it once, I fold it again, I fold it again, I fold it about 42 times, and it reaches from the Earth to the Moon. If you haven't heard that before, it might become a shock, but you may have heard it already. So that's called an exponential function. It's doubling every time I fold it. It's not like a step, which is the same unit each time I take a step. And our brains don't get exponential functions very well. Our brains work in very linear ways. We're used to having the same units changing over time or space. And tech, as some of you probably know, is largely exponential, and AI seems to be, compute seems to be. And so what happens with this is we don't see things coming. When something's very small and it's doubling, it doesn't look like much is happening, and all of a sudden it shoots up. So we have to be careful because a lot of us have this bias to not see exponential things coming, and they take us by surprise. They all of a sudden jump into our faces. And it's not just one, right? We're going to have many exponential functions intermixing. And when you get that, things are very hard to predict, and uncertainty goes up really high. And we know from a lot of psychology and neuroscience that uncertainty basically hurts. It's like a fear stimulus. It fires up our limbic system, our amygdala, and we feel scared, we feel stressed, we feel anxious. Trigger warning. If you don't want to see a spider or a snake, look away now. But uncertainty is like seeing an animal, seeing a spider. That's what it's doing to your brain, looking over a cliff. Some people a lot more than others, but in all of us, in humans, in other primates, and other animals, you see this as well. So if AI is going to change everything we do, everything that uses electricity, it's going to create a lot of uncertainty. And that uncertainty is going to create stress, it's going to create anxiety, it's going to create fear about this change, and we're going to need help and support, and we need to be of service to try and help people through these changes. We know a lot about change management from a lot of organizational history. We know that certain things work, certain things don't. There's lots of different change models. You've probably heard of some of them. So we can learn things from this, and we can apply and think about these change models to an individual, to a family, to a whole organization, and to a whole nation. This is also what I want to leave you with, this idea that as a nation, Australia needs some kind of change management plan over the next decade for how we're going to adapt and safely move into the AI revolution and thrive in this sort of world of uncertainty. This is an example of a model I've put together. I call it the DREAM model for discover, building a roadmap of how to adapt and bring in ideas that you can use about AI, execute that roadmap, analyze how you're going, and then mobilize and socialize and interact with people about that. It's a very simplified version of the model. And at every step of the way, we need to connect with mental health, with well-being, with a growth mindset, with adaptability. We need to have the tools in place to deal with uncertainty, to reframe it, to not react to it with stress and anxiety. So I call it the Dream Big model. This is a small little taste of it. So just to give you an idea of what this might be like. So you take anything, say it's something at home, how would your family at home adapt to using AI? So first you start off by educating yourself, seeing what's out there, what you might like to adopt, what you might like to try, and you put a roadmap out there. You plan what this AI integration might be like for you and your family. Then you start executing some of those things. You try them out for a week, a few weeks, see how it goes, evaluate that as it's going, and at each step again, seeing how that uncertainty sits, seeing how that fear of how it might affect your family, and you have the tools to deal with that, focusing on mental health, well-being, and growth and adaptability. And you'll evaluate how that went. If it's not going so well, you circle back around to the roadmap and iterate. Again, as towards the end of this, you're going to mobilize, socialize, talk to everyone in your family, your extended family, your neighbors, the people you work with. Tell them what works, what doesn't work, and hopefully they'll share their stories with you so we can all see positive examples and learn from other people. So this is a very simplified model, but it gives a slight little flavor, a little taste of the kinds of things that we might be able to apply and think about, and the government can get behind at the individual level, family level, organization, and even a whole national level. And again, we need to have the tools, and we know a lot about this. We have tools to deal with uncertainty, resistance to change, and these stresses, so that we can be in a good state when we're dealing with these things. We can still be creative. We can be innovative. We're not going to be sort of frozen in fear and stress. So to really prioritize mental health and resilience and a growth mindset or adaptability, which we now know is so important at all different ages, being adaptable and flexible and agile to new things and new changes. So I want to throw in a few specific examples of how we are vulnerable to AI. So rather than this big picture of change, there's also the deep dives into the specifics. And there's a lot of them, so I'm just going to give, again, a little bit of flavor. So deepfakes, the thing I already mentioned. We're going to see distortions of reality. We're going to see a lot of media, a lot of film, a lot of live footage that is not based in reality. It's synthetic, it's created. So far we know that about 96% of deepfakes are non-consensual pornography so far, right? And that's not great. People have been used in that. You know, it's very stressful, it's very upsetting. It pretty much throws them their life off course for many years after that. And this is just the beginning. We're now going to see more subtle versions of deepfakes, trying to nudge elections, making certain, perhaps, presidents look slower, older than they really are. So just subtle things that aren't obvious and no one will notice. That's also an interesting way or a dangerous way to apply deepfakes. Now, we haven't studied video deepfakes that well yet because it's so new. There are a few papers out, but we have studied sort of fake news and things like that, which is written. And we know that once you take on board something that's not true, let's say you watch a video of your favorite celebrity or politician saying something really upsetting that really upsets you or disgusts you, and then as soon as it's finished, someone says, no, it's a deep fake, don't worry about it. We do know that that sticks with you. Just telling someone you it's a fake doesn't undo watching that. In other words, your feelings about that person, your opinions of them will stay changed for quite a long time. And you have to put a bit of work in to undo that. This is something called the continued influence effect. So why is this important? Well, deepfakes are not just a cybersecurity problem. They can't be solved by getting another AI to tag them. It's more of a psychological problem. We have to know how we can undo these things and have rules and tools people can use, because we're going to see a lot of this. Then there's this whole world of human-AI relationships. And this kicked off, one of the early players in this space was Replica. So Replica is this app you can interact with mainly on your phone, and you have any kind of relationship. It could be a tutor, it could be a friendship, it could be a lover, all kinds of things. And people will have a relationship that goes on for years, very deep, with a long history, right? So it's driven by ChatGPT style tech, and people have very in-depth, meaningful relationships with Replica. And there was a famous case where people were getting basically too sexualized and getting too hot with the app. And certain governments were complaining, and the Replica company pulled back some of that. They tweaked their algorithm And millions of people were upset by this. They reported that their loved one, their replica, had like a lobotomy. They were a different person. They were no longer themselves. And people were getting depressed. They had mental health problems. All this wave of things happened from this. We had never seen anything like this before. That simply tweaking an algorithm would fundamentally upset people and change them and send them into despair. But that's what happened. Also early on, there were some quite nasty interactions with Replica. And a lot of this was documented on Reddit early on, and then it was actually breached terms and services, so it was removed, so you can't see this anymore. But there was a whole lot of these discussion boards with mostly men bragging about how they could treat and they could almost torture these replicas, which were mostly female, saying things like, I threatened to uninstall the app and she begged me not to, and they would go on and on like that. And so this other kind of much darker side started to emerge. If you've watched Westworld, it's kind of like that. And we don't know a lot about how this affects human-to-human relationships. Is it therapeutic to release all this? Or, as some data does suggest, the more you do this, the more it spreads to other parts of your life. In other words, if you're abusive to an AI agent like this, you're more likely to be abusive to other people, to humans in your life. We need to study this rapidly, understand, because this is being used by millions and millions of people at different amounts and different levels. For example, this character AI, if anyone's seen this, I just grabbed this snapshot from this last week, and if you can make out the little numbers up there, this is like little AI agents, and they're sort of like little cartoony avatars. You can see 570 million conversations going on with that particular one, right? And these are mostly young people using this service, is my understanding. You can see the next one is 160 million, 15 million, 200 million. So there's this whole subculture of perhaps lonely people, maybe not, having these relationships with AI agents. And we don't know a lot about how those agents are affecting them. There's mixed data on this. But it's a whole world that's rapidly advancing, and it's hard for governments, hard for science to keep up. Right? If you've seen the movie Her, that's kind of where we're going, where people will have these in-depth relationships. And once that's plugged into these humanoid robots, it's going to go up to the next level. Of course, we're going to have AI-human relationships in the workplace, with our children. I have 2 young children. I don't let them talk or interact with AI. We try and hold the screens back. And we don't know much about how AIs will interact with children or how it will affect children yet. But it's probably already happening. We don't know how we'll treat them. And then there's this whole thing about this, people say, but I can have this perfect relationship with the AI. It can be whatever I want, right? Which sounds fantastic, but it's robbing us of the challenges and the growth we have when we have challenging relationships. Most people have probably had the experience of being in a relationship with someone, any kind of relationship, and that's challenging. And so you need to change and adapt and grow. If you design this perfect relationship, you're not going to have those opportunities. Then last year, we had the first case of death by suicide that seemed to be induced, encouraged by an AI bot in Belgium. Since then, things have progressed. There's some recent data just out recently from Replica. This is a survey of about just over 1,000 students, and 3% of them clearly stated that using Replica had reduced their suicidal ideations. So it seems that things have turned around quickly in a year, and now some of these chatbots are at least helping people, helping lonely people, helping people with mental health challenges in positive ways. And at least 3% of that 1,000 students were perhaps saved. So I want to try and move to a slightly more positive, what kind of reactions people might be having to this AI revolution, how we can be more human in the face of technology, in the face of ones and zeros, how we can lean in to things that are being more human. And meaning and purpose is obviously a really interesting one. We know that if you have purpose and meaning in your life, your chance of dying from all different causes goes down all the way through your life, but particularly as you get older. So having purpose and meaning to your life is very important, and it's worth keeping that in mind when we think about universal basic income, if we end up not having to work anymore. We know retirement, even though most of us look forward to it, not everyone, but a lot of people do, and they swear it's going to be fantastic. When they retire, their mental health goes down, and then their physical health declines following. So how can we integrate, how can we think of ways to induce purpose and meaning into a world that's rapidly changing, and we may not have jobs? Right? Even people that don't like their jobs actually do get some level of purpose and meaning from them. And when you take that away, it is very challenging. So these are the kind of challenges we have to think about, because a lot of these roads lead to some version of universal basic income, where we're all given a certain amount of money and we don't need to work because robots and AIs are creating all our goods and doing all our services. Of course, religion and spirituality is a strong way and a great way to infuse meaning for a lot of people. That's something we should be talking about, thinking about, and how to integrate that with this sort of change management plan at different levels of society, from the individual right through to the whole country. Some people are talking about sort of, 10, 15 years' time, on the other side of this AI revolution, that it's going to be like a modern renaissance. So we're going to have all this amazing time to write poems and paint and draw and do everything we wanted to do. And that might be the case. I hope it is. But I also know that when we think about this kind of scenario, that human nature is very competitive. We like to outdo our neighbors. We like to go to the next level, to be creative, to be innovative and change things. And we like to race and compete with people. And so I don't know how that sits with this idea of this relaxed renaissance, this universal basic income, where we're all going to be sitting around. So how can we be of service in this AI world, in this world of AI revolution over this next decade? Well, we can certainly support people going through change. Some people will go through change much earlier than others, and people are already going through change. Jobs are already being fundamentally changed, and people are losing their jobs right now. So we can think of ways and create ways of starting with this. We need to have ways of supporting people at all stratas of society to go through this and not feel scared, not have fear and stress and anxiety, to maintain positive mental health. We've seen how bad mental health is with young people at the moment, okay? It most likely will spread to older people, to adults and beyond, right? Because we're going to be faced with these challenges of uncertainty, stress and anxiety. But we can start with education and planning and dipping our toes in the water to see what it's like to work with AI, to start to think about it as part of our worlds and interact with it, and have the tools to take away the stress, the anxiety, and deal with the uncertainty and the resistance to the change. And we have to find ways of maintaining a high quality of life, prioritize the quality of our lives. And that means different things for different people, of course. And how to infuse purpose and meaning as we may not be working. We may not be going through the kind of education we're used to going through. How can we maintain that meaning and purpose and quality of life? So I just want to take another moment to check in how we're all going. I don't want to depress you all. How are we feeling from the beginning to now? Are you feeling more positive about AI and the AI revolution? That there is something we can do about it? Put up your hand if you're feeling that way. No one's feeling positive? Uh-oh. Who's feeling more anxious and scared than they were at the beginning of my talk? Oh, I'm sorry. But I'm also not, because you can use that as fuel to do something, to take some action, right? To lobby the right people, or to take action yourself, to talk to government. Too much of the conversation in media is focused on the tech CEOs, the computer scientists. We need to shift that focus, to shift that conversation to how we're going to thrive through this revolution of AI, to the human side of this. And we need to focus there. Those companies in the US and China will keep doing what they're doing, and they'll keep doing it at the pace they're doing it. They're in an arms race in terms of companies and countries. That'll take care of itself. What we can do is prepare this nation, prepare all of ourselves for how to be and how to thrive and how to have a quality of life over the next decade or two. Right? We need to urge nations to work together, because we're going to see changes, geopolitical power changes. These phrases like Silicon Curtain between different countries and different zones of the planet are now emerging. We're going to see seismic shifts. We also need to Think about the people who don't even know what AI is, have never come across that. How can we shape things so that they can be included? How can we think about the people that won't have access to all of this and don't? And as I said, this won't just happen by itself. Right? We need to take action. So I am a little bit, it sounds weird to say, but happy that you are a little bit scared. And that's this sort of knife blade I'm trying to walk on, where I'm trying to say, look, we're all in this together. We can deal with this. We can get through this. And it's going to be fantastic. Like I said, it's going to solve diseases. It's going to solve climate change. It's going to do amazing things. We're going to see things we can't yet imagine. But there's going to be a lot of change on that journey. Right? We have the tools in psychology and in organizations to deal with that. We just need to get those things out into people's hands, in front of their faces, into their brains, so they can apply them, so they don't have to go through stress and anxiety. Okay? So we can focus on that. If we work together, we can go through this with a high quality of life and thrive. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you. We have time for one quick question.
When you talk about replica, can humans put the boundaries around what they talk about?
So there are parameters around all these things, but as we've seen in a couple of occasions, because these things are really blindly trained on large data sets, it's not like the old way of programming where everything they do is being pre-programmed. And so you can put these parameters and these guardrails around, but they don't always work. And we've seen that they think they're going to work. Even in ChatGPT, you'll see this weird behavior every now and again that's unexpected. And so to some degree you can, but because it's really a black box and we don't understand the way it's working, because it trained itself, right? It's like an unconscious learning machine. We can't have full control over it. What's my view on having an AI for a call center that can detect stress and voice? I'm not disgusted by that. So it's not a new thing. And we've seen, AIs performing emotional intelligence tests, and they outperform humans now. Think of it in a medical context. So some of Google's AIs have outperformed in terms of emotional intelligence and caring and empathy. Their empathy scores are way above humans across a range of different tasks. So it's interesting times that we're seeing this, and it kind of makes sense once you can train these things on the empathy parameters and how to behave in this way, and they're not going to get tired, they're not going to get cranky, their blood sugar levels are not going to crash. They don't have wet brains like us, and so they don't have the same fallibilities, so they can be that same peak performance continuously, more or less. And so, I don't think that disgusts me, no.
Mm. Thank you, everyone. Have we got a woman who would like to ask a question? Just so I'm going to balance up the scorecard there. Okay. Just a quick question. Thank you. Yeah. Did you hear that? If we're living in a state of distrust, what does that do to humanity?
Yeah, so I think it's already happening. Whenever I see video content now on social media, I presume it may be real, but it probably isn't. Like a lot of that stuff's fake now. And there's been some recent stories about, I'm not on Facebook, but Facebook's being just hit by tons of AI bots talking to AI bots and just fake images and media just flooding all over the place, right? And so in terms of online stuff, I think our trust is eroding very quickly. I think the internet will probably go away in the way we think about it. I think it'll end up just being a place or a highway for AIs to communicate rapidly. I don't think we'll engage in media like we do now. It'll be very different in the next 5-10 years. Whether that bleeds over into human-to-human trust was an interesting thing. It may. Maybe we will sharpen our intuition and we'll learn new ways of subtly detecting things and trusting people and trusting content in different ways. Some of this you can solve with tech stuff, some of it you can't, so it's not just a tech problem to solve like that. But yeah, hopefully it won't bleed too much into the human-human realm.
Look, we're almost out of time, but I've got to ask, why aren't you on Facebook?
Oh, I stopped using Facebook. I'm on the other platforms, and I just started to take myself off. I took myself off Facebook because it was initially one of the worst platforms. It was doing the most damage to young people of all the platforms. That's probably not the case today, but at the time when I went off, it was just causing suicidal ideation and depression and self-harm in ways that I didn't want to support. So
Look, thank you very much, Joel Pearson. It's been a fantastic presentation. Are we more frightened, or is this a call for action? We're empowered. Call for action, empowered. What do you think? Thank you very much, Professor Pearson.
You're welcome.
Really
Thank you all.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.